Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to be coming to you live today to be talking about choosing a preschool. Gosh, this is like such a big topic for so many of us. So if you're with me here live, let me know in that comment box. And if you're here on the replay, come and comment below so that I know that you've watched this as well. And let us know also where you are coming from. So this thing of choosing preschool, it happens for most of us around January that we need to kind of register our children for a preschool. And I know that it can be such a hard decision to make because it seems so final. Often also when we are choosing preschools, we need to be making some kind of a down payment towards preschools. So when I actually first became a mom, I had no idea. Like I knew that there was something about like that you needed to register your children beforehand, but I had no idea that it was like so much in advance. And actually my child was born in January, so we definitely missed all of those dates, and it was really difficult to kind of find something when everything was already taken. So I want to give you today in advance while you are not scrambling, so while you're having like this good window of time to be registering your child for preschool, an idea of what is important, what to look out for. So we're going to be going through one study specifically today, and I'm also going to be drawing from my experience from working in preschools, and hopefully this is going to help you. I know this can be something that's so hard to navigate if you've never worked in education or maybe worked with children. It's hard to even really picture what does a day in preschool or daycare, what does it even look like, and what really are the most important things that we should be looking at. Of course, we all are going to have different opinions on this, and we are all going to have different thoughts on what is most important. But I want to give you today like a bird's eye view and a kind of mental list for yourself. If you're with me, come and grab some pen and paper because we are going to be taking some notes. A mental view and a checklist kind of that you can be using when you are going to visit different preschools. So if you are with me here live, come and give me a comment in the comment box so I can know that I am being seen and heard. I have this like little tendency to talk in these lives and then only realize that I'm on mute or something like that, like way afterwards. So hopefully that's not the case today. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to just inform you of is, firstly, if you're here for the first time, if we haven't met before, my name is Holly. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I'm also a mum. I have over a decade of experience working with children, working within preschools and different educational facilities for children. And today we're really going to be talking about what is a quality preschool. So we're talking specifically from a research paper. I'll drop it in the comment box later, which is the NICHD study of early childcare and development. And this is basically the most comprehensive study that we have on the impact of childcare on overall child development. Basically, the study looked at around 1,300 children, and it started in like 1990 or 1993, I think it started, and it followed these children until they were 18 years old. So it got a lifelong perspective on how their early childhood really impacted their later life, which I think is something we often just don't think of. The impact of these little years of the preschool that we choose on our children's later life. So whether you are here on the replay or live, let me know what your expectations are as you are kind of going into the season of looking for a preschool or a daycare. What do you like immediately think of in terms of what would be quality? I remember speaking to a mom when we were first kind of looking into childcare, and she said something about like, for some parents, like the type of food that's offered is like really, really important. For other parents, it's making sure that when your child comes home at the end of the day, like that they are clean, or at least that their diaper has been cleaned and things like that. But there are also some things that we can check for in advance, because those two are things that we maybe won't be able to tell in advance. But there are things that we can check for. So firstly, let's answer this question. Does it really matter? Like, does good quality childcare or preschool really matter in the little years? And the answer is yes, it does. So in this study, basically, that I was speaking about, the NICDH, they found that the quality of care in these early years showed later in children's lives an increased IQ, improved academic functioning. They were more advanced in their language skills at 4.5 years old than the children that had gone to a lower quality preschool. They had less behavioral problems up until the age of 15. They had better grades, and the children in higher quality preschools also had plans to attend more competitive colleges after they turned 18, which is when the study stopped. They were more cooperative, less aggressive. They had more positive interactions than the children that were in lower quality care. So if you're with me, let me know, is that something that's important to you? Any of those? Do they kind of jump out in terms of, well, I really would want that for my child? Like, that is one of the things that I do want for my child. And that kind of brings us to the question of investment. I don't know about you, but I find like this question of investment, maybe because I like numbers, but it comes up a lot in a lot of my thinking around my children. I just want to check that I'm like definitely fine. If you are here and you can hear me, will you let me know? I'm so paranoid that I'm on mute. Oh, it looks like it's fine. So this thing of investment comes up a lot, and how it comes up when you're trying to like buy a pair of shoes for your child. Should I invest in a better quality pair of shoes? Will they last longer? Will they be more beneficial for my child's feet? There's so many questions that we can be asking about where should we invest for our children. Should I be spending more time with them? Should they be going for extramurals? Like, where are we investing for our children's lives? Oh, yay, you can hear Playing with Purpose. Thank you so much. Oh, it's so nice to see you. Okay, so the question of investment. Yes. So what do you invest in? Like, is there an area that this comes up for you in terms of thinking about your children? Like where to invest your time, money, patience, all of it. So there's actually a lot of research around investment in early childhood education. And I know many of you that are listening are parents. So I don't want you to get too like worked up on this detail. These studies are done so that governments can be informed on where they should be investing their money back, which as parents, we can then choose how we vote and choose how we pressure our governments or inform them to give us better services, right? So it is helpful for us to know, but I don't want you to put there's some numbers that we're going to be talking about here, and I don't want you to like put them on yourself as like, oh my gosh, this is the most important thing ever. It's just like, let it just sit loosely in the back of your mind, is basically what I'm saying. So basically, there was a study done in 1963 by a psychologist named David Weikart. And what he did is that he took a group of children from a lower income area and put them into a very high quality preschool. So the preschool that their peers in their area would have attended was much lower in quality, and we'll be talking about those quality points in a few minutes. But these children went to a more high quality preschool, and basically what they found, they published this later on, if you've heard of it, it's called the High Scope Perry Preschool Study. They basically found that change made a tremendous difference in these children's lives. So they tracked these children over their lifespan. So there was different things at different ages that they noticed was better and more important. I'm not going to go into each of them, but basically, like, by the time these children were in their 40s, they earned more money. There was less chance of them being in jail. Like, their overall well-being was just much better, and that was the kind of only thing that they'd changed. There's a lot of dynamics around any single study, so it's not something that we can take as like the hard and fast, cut and dry, this is for everyone. It might not be the best fit for our family, but I think it's really good to consider this anyway. So what they found in terms of like the dollar investment, as I said, like, I love numbers. So they said, like, here they invested $15,000 in taking these children and putting them into a higher quality education center. So $15,000 per child. And they found that the total return of investment, if they studied this with an economist, was $195,000. So that's like a return of investment of something like 7 to 10% per year, compounded interest. So if you are geeky like me and you like numbers, you're like, this kind of blows your mind how important these little years are, like how quality education can be so supportive and really ripple through our children's lives. So before we actually go into the thinking of what quality education looks like, I do just want to say that these are one piece of the puzzle of all of the research that's been done around early childhood education. And actually, like I said, the NICDH study, what it found pretty conclusively is that home factors played a bigger part than education. If you also read Crib Sheet by Emily Oster, I have it somewhere, but anyway, it also talks about this in terms of like a research kind of summary, that the home factors are more important. So if you are worried about not having a like top preschool in your area, or you're going to see the top doesn't always mean top as we go through these, but if you are like feeling bad about not having the very best some preschool or daycare available, just know that the home factors actually are more important. That's why we love parents here. That's why we want to build you each up as parents. And I'll also say up front, like my children, none of the preschools and daycares that they've ever attended have ever met every single one of these top quality criteria. And I'm happy to know about them beforehand so I can like weigh up the pros and cons in my mind. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing now. I want you to grab a sheet of paper, and we're going to be playing red light, green light, because I love red light, green light. Like it just helps me order my thoughts very well. So grab a piece of paper. I want you to write red, yellow, and green. I don't have actually red, green, and yellow markers. I just have my daughter's frozen glittery highlighters here. So anyway, write those down. What I'm going to, as I'm talking, because there's going to be a lot of points that we're discussing, I want you to write down for yourself in the red the things that would disqualify a preschool or a daycare center. So these are going to really help you as you're screening out different places, because you might be making tons of phone calls and like looking at websites of many different places. As we're talking, there'll be some things that you'll be like, that for me is like an absolute, I can't do that. So that's going to go in the red flag area. That's immediately, if the preschool or daycare has that thing, we're not going to be investigating further. Then I want you to, in the green side, put the things that you would ideally love to be present. Or the things that feel like they're very important for you as a family. And then in the yellow, you're going to be placing some of the things that you want to consider, but they maybe not, they're not necessarily like ruling out a preschool, and they're not necessarily things that have to be present. Now, if you're just listening and you haven't gotten your paper, go get your paper, because we're going to be going through all of these points now, and it really is like summarizing a big research paper. So I want you to have these present so that as you're doing all of this screening, it's really going to help you. If you are here on the replay, you can also just press pause, come back later. Let me just get rid of this banner. Okay, so the 4 qualities of a good childcare facility according to the NICDH study, and you can also go and look this up if you want to. It's available on Google. So basically, the first thing that they said is that they basically divided certain factors that are more in terms of the structure of the preschool or daycare to factors that are in terms of caregiving. And they found that these first 3 that we're going to mention, that are more about the structure of the daycare, are more important than the last one. So bear that in mind as well. So the first thing that they said, and this is also in line with the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Public Health Association, is that a small adult to child ratio is very important. So what they recommend is that for children aged 6 months to a year and a half, it should be 3 children to 1 adult. So 6 months to 18 months, 3 children to 1 adult. That's the ratio that they recommend. Then for children that are 1.5, so 18 months until 2 years, they say 4 children to 1 adult. And then from 2 to 3 years, they recommend 7 children to 1 adult or staff member. Then they talked about group size. How many children should be in this whole group? Like, irrespective of how many adults are present, how many kids can actually manage together. And they found here, again, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics and American Public Health Association, that the recommendation would be children aged 6 months to 18 months should have only a maximum of 6 children in the group. So if the group is bigger than 6, they said that's too big. They said from 18 months to 2 years, a maximum of 8 children together. And from 2 to 3 years, they said a maximum of 14 children in one group. Now, as I've said these numbers, I know that these are recommendations that most, especially non-private places, don't follow. So let me know if this is from wherever you are based. How does this sound in terms of ratio? Does it sound very different to what you've noticed is available around you? Does it sound kind of on track? I'd love to know what your adult to child ratio is where you are based. Generally speaking, the ratio of adult to child where I live is kind of followed like in terms of the babies. So one person to... Oh no, actually it's not. One staff member to three children is definitely not followed. But you can understand why these are important, because it gives your child more access to an adult. I'm sure you've all experienced, as you have babies, it feels like you with one baby are like an octopus, like you need to have 8 arms and are doing so many things at the same time. So when we bring lots of children into the same environment, we want that there is the availability of an adult to be helping them and supporting them and nurturing them. Multi-age program for 1 to 4-year-olds. That's amazing. That's really great, playing with purpose. Okay, so that's adult to child ratio. Group size is the next one. And then, yeah, there's a big advantage as well with that actual multi-age ratio, because I think there's a lot more flow when there's older children and younger children together. I'm sure that there's also things that come up that are difficult, but I really like that model. Okay, caregiver to teacher education. So the next point that they found is that it's really important that the people that are working with the children have some kind of education. So they said basically in an ideal situation, they would have formal post-high school training, whether that's a college degree or whether that's some kind of certification in child development and early childhood education. Where I live personally, this is not something that it's only in the last 3 or 4 months been added that it has to be a standard practice. So I'd also love to hear, wherever you are based, is this something that is actually regulated? Like, do people follow up on this? I think as parents, when we come into a daycare situation, we kind of often just in our minds think that there must be like a lot of regulation happening, but it's definitely not the case in all places at all. And then the fourth point, which, as I said, this point is a bit longer, so get out that list if you're writing things down, but this is a bit long. The fourth point, they said, is less important than the other 3. And as a parent, I think the fourth point is the one that we immediately jump to often, and it will make sense as we go through it. So the fourth one is talking about positive caregiving. So they said here that the caregivers have a positive attitude towards the children, that they have positive physical contact, that they comfort the children, also physically, that they respond when the children are giving vocalization. So obviously for an infant group, that's just like a vocalization, but for older children, your 2s and 3s, so as they're talking, does the caregiver respond to what they're saying? That they encourage development, and that can be from allowing tummy time to helping, to having equipment available and toys for doing puzzles and stacking blocks and zipping zippers and all of these kinds of things. they advance behaviors. So basically it talks about how the caregiver would have like positive interactions around behaviors. So they would be taking a positive approach when there is, I'm sure, many of the daily momentary issues that happen between children, if it's anything like within my house. But that they're also engaging the child in a positive way. They're laughing and they're smiling as they're engaging with the child. The next one is that they would be asking the child questions, and that they would also be talking to the children in other ways. So they talk about here like encouraging the child. They also talk about singing and storytelling. If you guys have been around my accounts a while, you know I love storytelling. It's such an important thing for young children. And they also spoke about reading, another thing we love here. And you know, whether the daycare has books and they have regular reading times available for the children. So I don't know how you felt hearing all of those. I hope that you felt like, okay, those are doable. Like that is something close to the kinds of facilities or centers that we have available in front of me. What I did want to say is, as I said before, like for my personal family, we haven't met the preschools that we've had available, haven't met every single one of these criteria. And actually in the study, they found that it's only a small percentage of children that actually received that amount of positive caregiving. So I think they said like 18% or something like that. And that it got less as children got older. So it seems that babies get more of the like response from caregivers and older children less. It could also be that the group sizes increase. So these things were super great for us as parents to come with like some kind of an equipped mindset on what we're looking for. If you want to, you can go to that study, and they actually have like right at the end on their appendix, they have that as a checklist that you can, it's made for parents. So you can go and print that out and take it with you as like a checklist if you want to. I'm that person, I would do that. But I want to talk a little bit more about other considerations from working within preschool systems. Some of the things that we don't always think about as we're going in, and depending on where you live, these might be important. So let me know if you are still with me. The first one is staff turnover rate. This might not be something that whoever is running the preschool has like a really clear idea on what it will look like at the end of the year, but it's important, I think, to ask. What happens often is that there's a lot of turnover. So there are, where my one child is in preschool at the moment, the next door preschool, they had, I think like 5 staff changes in 1 year, which is a lot for young children. So asking about staff turnover rates is really important. The other thing is also when you go into, especially in a daycare setting, you're often talking to like the manager or the person that owns this center. It's important to realize that that might not be the person that is actually with your child every day. It might be, but it might not. So just to ask that question. I went to go see a preschool once, and I kind of was confused about where the entrance was. And there was somebody like sweeping up the leaves and stuff outside, like a municipality worker. And he basically told me like, the person that's going to speak to you, she's never here. You see her car's not here. She hasn't even arrived yet. And that was what it turned out to be. And the person that actually was looking after what age group my child would have been in was like very, very young. And you know, even while I was there, she was on her phone. So it definitely wasn't the place that I, sure, I'll share the link now. If you just type in NICHD on Google, it will pop up. Yeah, and you can, it's like a PDF that you can download as well. But I'll drop the link at the end as well. Okay, another thing that you might want to think about is food, and in terms of like what meals are they being offered? Is it warm food? Is it food that you are needing to bring from home? Then naps, where are they napping? Is there space for nap? Do they all have to nap at the same time? What if your child isn't struggles to sleep? And is there a certain age that they kind of make the children drop naps? This can sound like a hard thing to kind of know how to navigate it in the beginning. I know that a lot of parents struggle when the nap time in the daycare is like very late in the afternoon and then the child goes to bed really late. But I do think that like once, it might not always be like really easy in the beginning. Once you can get into a system where your daycare provider or preschool is like really following a regular nap time, it can actually really help on the home side as well. That there's just that like follow through in terms of naps. The other thing that's important to look at is there any fresh air? Is there ventilation? Is there any natural light in the space? These are really important, especially one of the things that this NICHD also found is that there was a lot of sickness in children in preschools or in daycare settings, which is, to be expected. So having fresh air and a bit of ventilation can really help with that too. It's also great to think, even now in these little years, about the distance of where this is in terms of where it is from your home. So I know for us, we had like a situation where we were commuting for work. So it's felt like a natural thing that if our child would go to a preschool or a daycare on the way to our commute. But what I found so much with parents is that it's really helpful if the preschool or daycare is very close by, because then all of the little friends that they make will also be close by. And because education systems are often like little funnels, that children go up into, they might have friends even when they're very young that you connect with the parents and you can form like a good friendship and that they continue together. There's also in different places that the preschool or daycare is actually the feeder into the school. So that's something to, I'm an immigrant, so I always kind of need to ask these kind of questions because I don't always know exactly how it works in a new area. And we actually we've moved a lot. So always just asking questions, sending your feelers out to what your area provides. And then distance in terms of what that transition and commute means for your family. Sometimes people will want to send their child to a specific preschool because it seems better, according to these things, but it ends up that it's even if it's a short 10-minute drive with finding parking, getting out the car, getting your child, bringing them back to the car, then getting home. And often if you have siblings along the way as well, that small commute can also be pretty influential. So let me know if you guys have anything that you want to add to this list, things that you've heard of or seen, or things that are like also relevant to you, especially if you're here live or if you're listening on the replay. You can leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear also from your experience, what are some of the things that like people have told you is important or things that you feel are really important for you. Another thing is cost to obviously consider. I mean, obviously this is a big one. Childcare is very expensive. So I would how we do this is like we think about how the cost of childcare may impact the number of hours that we need to work and like how much pressure we have in terms of work. So for me at the moment, my children are in, how we have it here is that our children actually have like a government preschool that they attend. And as I said, it's not like perfect. I would say it's like really good. I'm really happy with where they are, and I feel really grateful that they have great teachers and a great space, and that this is available for them. But I know also if there was something that seemed like a better option, possibly, it would also mean that then they would have to stay for a much longer day. Just in terms of the dynamic of our family, because I would have to work more instead of them having just a half day, which they have now, and then they can come home. So all of these things, they're part of the puzzle, and there's no one fits all kind of solution, because for each of us, we have to like really look at this in terms of our whole families. The other consideration is safety. Who else comes into the home or the center, especially if this is a daycare and it is like a small group within the home, who else is coming in and out of that place? And then very important to also look at physical safety. Are the cupboards and stuff mounted to the walls? Are there loose cords lying around? Are there things that children could get like tangled in, like cables? Sometimes with like blinds, there's like a cable hanging off, like water pools, anything like that. Like just have a look at the safety. Most daycare centers that are reputable will have high safety standards, but I always like consider what should I say that I don't want to scare you, because I don't think it's a good place to come from fear. But there definitely have been many incidents of that not being the case. So just make sure that it feels as safe as maybe your home would, or something that you're comfortable with. Another thing that I figured out recently in terms of where we are is that only, like as I said, in the last 2 or 3 months, they've put in a law that people that are working at daycare facilities or preschools need to have a criminal background check done and presented. So this is something that also, you can ask. We're going to talk about in a few minutes, like some of the steps that you can start to take. But the first one definitely is like ask the uncomfortable questions. It's better to know than not to know. There's also things that are really important, like the personality fit between your child and the teacher. What research kind of shows us is that the attachment between a child and teacher does affect like a child's ability to pay attention, and does impact some of the cognitive learning outcomes. It's a kind of a hard one to really know about beforehand. What I liked from this book, The Highly Spirited Child by Mary Krishenka, she talks about like different temperament styles of children, and the tip that she gives for a lot of parents is to go into, whether it's a daycare, preschool, or a classroom setting. That's what we're doing at the moment. We are choosing grade 1 for my child. So this is all really fresh in my mind as well. But she says go into that place and try and spot if there's a child that has the same kind of temperament as your child. We all know instinctively that some children fit better into like a classroom setting or a preschool. They are a little bit more like go with the flow, and things might be a little bit easier for them. If you have, like I have, very spicy children, or children that have that you feel like there's a certain way of interacting with them that like serves them really well, go and look in the classroom. Is there anyone else with something like a little bit similar? This is obviously not like, we can't make every person just adore our child, and it's not necessarily something that we have a huge amount of control over. But if this is something that you're worried about, try and spot someone similar to your child in the classroom and see how they interact, and see how the classroom environment manages that child. That can give you a lot of ease to see if this would be a good fit for your child. There's other things that you should also look when you considering a new daycare or preschool. What happens during holidays? What happens when one of their staff is sick? What happens in terms of screens? What is the screen policy? What happens when children are sick? Are they allowed to be brought to the daycare? Generally speaking, they say if there's like a temperature, or if there's something that's contagious, like a runny tummy or something like that, then they can't bring the children in. But is that like part of the policy? And what is the hygiene like in terms of like washing all the things that they put in their mouth and all of that? So I know it was a long list. I hope that you had your paper with you and you wrote some of those down. I want to give you just 3 quick tips now on what you can do as you are going into this process. And I would love to also hear from you. If you're here with me or on the replay and there's any thoughts that are like coming to mind, any questions, just pop them down below. I would love to answer those for you. Okay, so the 3 tips. The first one is don't be afraid to ask the awkward questions. Most places will have some kind of like a welcome pack or a website or something like that you can read through like all of these things about policy and background checks and all of the small details. But if they don't, and if there's questions that you still have, ask the awkward questions. It's way better to ask it now than to find out later. So ask all of these questions. You're going to be investing a lot of money in this preschool or daycare, whichever it is. So it's great to ask questions. And then as we went through this list and you had your red, yellow, and green qualities of a preschool, I would encourage you to use that in your screening process of going through and checking which preschool that you're going to be looking at. So, for example, if you wrote, for you as a parent, it's really important that you know who's with your child, then that was like on your red list. It's really important that there's no other people kind of filtering through an environment. Then you might want to be looking at something that is a much more structured daycare or preschool that isn't run in somebody's home, so that there's a bit more structure in terms of tracking who comes in. It might be a bigger kind of center or facility. If you wrote down that having warm food is something that you really want that your child has, then that's something that as you're screening, you can kind of look at the places that offer this and the places that don't, and that can help you in the screening process. It's better to cast your net wide and see what is available to you. Of course, recommendations can really help, but also just do an internet search. Often these places are listed, they'll have their map linked on Google, and you can just see what's available to you. You might also be surprised. The last point that I wanted to make, I hope that these points have been helpful for you, is that it's better to register even if you're not 100% sure, because what happens if we delay? Often these places you have to pay a deposit or something to secure your spot. And it can be such a hard decision to come to, but I would encourage you to put down the deposit, even if you're not 100% closed on that's what you're going to do, because then you've bought yourself peace of mind and freedom. It's especially now, after the pandemic, a lot of daycare centers and preschools and private education centers closed down. So we want to buy ourselves as much opportunity to have the power to choose as we can. So even if it means registering early, I would really recommend that you do that. So I'm going to take a few minutes now for questions. If there's any area that you want to troubleshoot around when it comes to preschool, if there's any questions that you have for me now, choosing a preschool or a daycare, drop them in the comment box. I do also offer one-on-one consultations. I know that so many parents found this so helpful just to have someone to bounce ideas off of and share a bit more of the background of what to really expect from daycares and preschools. So if that is something that you're interested in, you can always come and check out. If you go to my website, otholly.com/consulting, it's there. And I'm now going to give you just a few minutes. I'll wait around in case anyone has any questions. Finish up all my teas, my teas and this is a chai tea. So nice. Okay, it looks like you guys are all set. So I think I'll leave it at that for today. If you are here on the replay, you can also add questions then. That's totally fine. And I will drop the link for that study in the notes of this YouTube video. But if you did make your red light green light, you can steal this idea for every decision. I find it just so helpful to break down things like that. So I'll be leaving you for today. Thank you for joining me, and I really wish you and your child all the best in making this decision. You, as your child's parent, know them the best out of everyone. I know you want to do so well for your child, and each step that you take, even if it's not always perfect, even if it's not always Instagram worthy, and the way that you're providing, the way that you're showing up for your child is just immeasurably powerful over their life. So well done. Bye, everyone.